As far as housing is concerned, specifically, the biggest advantage that India has is that our GDP to mortgage ratio, mortgage to GDP ratio is amongst the lowest in the world at 9%. So we are a country where the mortgage to GDP historically, because of how Indians think and how the mortgage industry was stacked up, there was practically no leverage. And even today, as Indians, we are hesitant borrowers on mortgages. We are also blessed that we have a central bank which is extremely focused on very tight regulations specifically for mortgages, even for the most prime, smallest ticket size home loan. And this is after a steep reduction in risk weights. We still have a risk weight of 35%. Which is amongst the highest for that category of home loans in the world. So we continue to have a environment of home loans where the risk weights are high, where the loan to values are restricted, and the regulator insists on income appraisal caps on how affordability is calculated for the loan. So it's a very, very tightly regulated industry with great oversight. So at one level, it tends to curtail the growth, which is reflected here in the mortgage to GDP penetration. But the flip side is that we have a very stable mortgage environment, and we do not have any type of neither social nor financial issues coming out of the mortgage industry in India. The government, as part of its Housing for All policy, has been taking a lot of initiatives. They've passed two massive acts. So there is a Real Estate Regulation Act which has been recently passed. I'm slightly familiar with the way real estate in London is regulated, and my sense is that now the Real Estate Regulation Act in India is, if not at par, maybe perhaps even tighter than how real estate is going to be run in most Western economies, from an engagement between the developer and the customer's perspective. So the customer has really been taken care of in the Real Estate Regulation Act. I briefly touched about the tax incentives. That continues to be a great foundation for the entire Indian mortgage industry. I will come to specifics around tax incentives just in a bit. The budget also has given massive tax exemptions to developers to increase the supply of homes, and also paid out, reduced the service tax on such transactions. And extremely importantly, India has a very large government structure in which we have millions and millions of people working for the government. And the Seventh Pay Commission, which basically affects all of these millions of employees of the government, is expected to really beef up the demand on the of real estate, especially the mass housing type of real estate in India over the course of the next 2 or 3 years. We also have a situation where the demographics are extremely favorable. 66% of the country is under 35 years, and urbanization is increasing rapidly. So we have a beautiful backdrop of a governance system in the country which is actually working now after many, many years. And we also have a situation where we have good tailwinds coming into specifically the housing sector in India. This is how the tax breaks in India play out. So for the type of home loans that we do out, which are roughly 2 to 3 million type of loans, even though the headline yield for the loan would be 9.4%, effectively the yields come to only 4.02%. This 9.4% is also on its way down. It has recently, just last week, been cut by another 15 basis points. So right now, effective mortgage yields in India have dipped to below 4% levels. Why this is important is that the moment rental yields and so rental yields in India are between 3 and 3.5%. Whenever in India in the past rental yields and effective mortgage yields have converged, which is now the situation, that really sets us up for a very robust real estate demand cycle. So my sense is that we are going to have a situation in India where the demand for housing is going to remain sustained for the next many, many years. And with this demonetization initiative and so much of money coming back into the formal financial system, and interests as a consequence of that should remain benign for the longest time. So we have really set ourselves up for a very good next 5, 6, 7 years.